Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Talise. And today I am so happy and excited to have with me Pauline Victoria. Welcome, Pauline Victoria.
Hi, Talise. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, of course, just to get jump right in, let's if you can share a little bit about your background, your journey, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I guess my journey started the day I was born. I know people are like eye roll, but it really does. So you may not be able to tell if you're watching this from the video that I actually was born without arms and legs. So you can imagine the unique perspective I have of life, the world, myself, and my identity. And it's just been an interesting and unique experience living in this body, especially in a world that's not made for you. And I would say I'm trying to figure out how to put this in the Cliff Notes version because I know the juicy stuff is on the journey. I'm sure we're going to dive into the journey a little bit more. But the destination of where I am currently, how did I get from there to here? So throughout my whole life, I knew that I had a calling in my life. I didn't know what it was. I thought it might be, I knew from an early age that I affected people. And so I'm like, okay, something where people can see me. But I did not want to lecture people. I didn't want to like have to pull apart my life and use it as a way to help people or I just wanted them to be able to see me be able to do something and from there make their own decision of whether or not they wanted to be inspired or I just didn't want to take responsibility for the gift that I was given. And yes, the gift that I'm talking about is being born without arms and legs. So I decided to become a communication major in college. I thought broadcast journalism, I could do my work, I can do my thing, live my life, and I'm in the public eye in some way where people could be, take whatever they want from me or need from me. But again, it was not me taking responsibility for my gift. And so it wasn't until after I graduated college I kept having people come up and say like, "Oh, you should really speak," or "Hey, could you speak to my women's group?" And so I did a little bit dabble in the speaking industry here and there. And then I had someone at my church, her son-in-law, it was a motivational speaker by trade, and he gave me the opportunity to uh, speak to the Dreyer's ice cream sales team in Ohio when I was 23. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm fresh out of college. What do I know about sales? I love ice cream, but that's about all I got for them. But I did it and I did it messy. But, it was the first, it was kind of the biggest opportunity for me to go have at the time. And I thought I did horribly. And so I hid even more from my gift and started working in the tech industry. Lived in Silicon Valley since I was born. So I just did that which was easy, I would say. Being an entrepreneur is not easy and not for the faint of heart. Fast forward from that point, that was probably 98, 99, and fast forward to 2009. By this time, I had moved to Hawaii. Had gotten married, had a baby, and I was living my life. I was living being a stay-at-home mom, but that just still wasn't enough for me. I have a drive and an ambition inside me, and so like a lot of stay-at-home moms, I joined a network marketing company, and I went to their yearly rah rah event. And lo and behold, who was there to motivate us was the master motivator, the father of greatness, Les Brown. And Les Brown, it was the first time I ever heard a motivational speaker. And of course, I was motivated and I was impressed. And he did his job because shortly after his speech, I was in the lobby on the phone making sales. He did his job of motivating me. So I'm on the phone in the lobby and I pace back and forth in my wheelchair when I talk on the phone. And I'm also been, by this time in my early 30s, and I'm looking around and I'm very aware of my surroundings and who's watching, who's not. It's just something I've had to learn growing up. And I could see in the peripheral vision this gentleman watching me. And I'm like, okay, I think that's Les Brown. Okay, he's watching me. Okay, I'm just gonna keep on doing my thing. And then he starts walking up to me and he's like, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, I'm on the phone, like I'm not going to get off the phone. This is so rude. But he said, I need to talk to you now. And he has a very strong, commanding voice. And so I said, okay, hold on. And I got off the phone politely with the person I was speaking to, and I turned my attention to Les. And he said, I've been listening to you and watching you. And I said, I know. And he said, I I want to help you train you to use your voice. You have a very powerful voice. And so I said, and so I just continued to listen. He invited me to his conference 4 days later in LA. Had no idea how I was going to get there, but and he said, bring whoever you need to bring to make this happen. It's all on me. And so, yeah, we made it happen with the willingness and grace of my friends and family. They helped me get down to LA, and that's how I started in the speaking industry. And that was, like I said, end of 2009. I kept going for a little bit, but then I kept having being pulled away from my family. And I was just it was something I had to make a choice about, right? And I left Silicon Valley so we could move to Hawaii so I could be a stay-at-home mom. And I just felt like I was missing a lot of moments with my son. I only had one son, but we're a blended family, so I had other stepkids in the house. And so I made a decision to just step back a little bit. We ended up homeschooling my son, and we did that for about 10 years. And then I decided to step back in. And in 2018, I created a company called One Leg Up Productions. Originally, it was to support people with disabilities, physical disabilities. And I created a video podcast called Chair Chats. It was great. I got to interview a lot of influencers and movers and shakers in the disability industry. That was really fun. And then during COVID, I got to create a group called Crip Chat. And we met every Saturday during COVID, and it was amazing to see it grow a life of its own. I think that's what happens is as entrepreneurs. It's like we're the creators, but eventually the creation has a life of its own, very similar to how we raise our children. And it was beautiful. It was this beautiful um, platform in which people who would never have met could connect and form friendships and form businesses and do work on projects together. And it was really beautiful. However, when I brought up the question of investing in it, there was not a good reception. And so I was a little disheartened, but I decided to pivot away from disability. Obviously, it's a part of who I am, so it's never going to go away completely. It's a different context in which I bring to my business. And I decided to help entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are my favorite people. They're the visionaries, they're the change makers, they are the messengers for the world, the lighthouse for a lot of people who are going through some hard stuff. And helping the best thing someone could do is go after their dreams. And when an entrepreneur goes after their dream, that's the most inspiring thing you could say or do ever. And I remember a mentor of mine saying to me, your job is not to inspire people. And I'm like, huh? Because that's part of my job title. I claimed the job title inspirational thought leader. And she said, no, your only job is to live a life so inspiring that you inspire others to live a life that's inspiring for them too. And the weight off my shoulders felt so it just lifted and it was so light. And I think entrepreneurs do that every day when they show up. And I'm a believer, and I definitely bring spirituality to my business. And I asked God, I'm like, why are people not able to create the businesses they want, that they say they want? And the answer was they're not showing up. And I'm like, oh, okay. So how can I help get them to show up? And from there, the idea dropped in. I call it like a download, a divine download of creating a challenge for speakers and coaches and other entrepreneurs to show up. And I called it the 60-day go live visibility challenge. And 10 people signed up. Three people never left even after the 60 days. And it was started in December 2022. And here we are, July 2025, and it's still going strong, and growing. So I'm very grateful for that. I've morphed the name into Step into the Spotlight. And yeah, so that's what I do now is you know what? For me, it's not so much the tactic or the strategy. That is all important. Tactics and strategies are important and necessary for a business. But if you never have the courage to implement that tactic and strategy, it's all for nothing. It's all in vain. And so for me, the other day, I did mention I'm a believer, and I was laying in bed, and this isn't the other day. We just want to say it's the other day. It was like 5 months ago or something. And I was laying in bed and kind of in that space between sleep and awake, and I hear a voice say, "You're a courage coach." And I like lifted my head and I'm like, "Wait, what?" And he said, "You're a courage coach." And I'm like, "Oh, that's so cool." And then I went back to sleep. I'm like, "I hope I remember this." And, there are confidence coaches, there's mindset coaches, there's productivity coaches, there's all sorts of coaches out there. But what is required before any of that can come to light is courage. And so I'm like, oh, that is what I am. I give people the courage to implement those strategies, to take the action necessary for them to show up. And it's been a really beautiful process to be able to watch people who say want to be a speaker, who say they want to make a difference, but never knew what was holding them back. And I think our biggest enemy is ourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. That's beautiful and such a beautiful story you have. And I'm just curious, when you were in the tech world, when you were doing broadcasting, did you just feel like something pulling at you? Like, I need more. This is not it. I want more. Did you have that feeling?
So I actually never pursued a career in broadcasting. What I learned very quickly towards the end of my college time, I'm like, why
Mhm.
do people not let us do this early on in college? Is that broadcast journalism really work, whatever is the look that year, right? Or that season. So it's very superficial in terms of who they're going to choose to put on TV and the news or, whatever it is. There has to be a certain look, a certain whatever it is they're trying to promote at that in that season. So I actually didn't when I was working in tech. It was very background. It was definitely in my comfort zone for sure.
Mhm.
Um, and that's the thing. I said several times in my story that I just wasn't taking responsibility for my gift. So, yes, I've always felt that there was something more that I was supposed to be doing. And, it's as much as people are trying to find their purpose is also finding them. Like it's also coming after you. And
Yes.
so it's like you can't run away from it. And I've tried. And there are times in my entrepreneurial journey, I'm like, and right now is one of these seasons where I'm like, I have so many storms going around me in my personal life right now that like, I don't have a lot of energy to give to this calling. But when I think about quitting, it also doesn't feel good. Right. So I actually interviewed a guest on my podcast one time and she said, pick the hard, right? Just
Mhm.
so is it hard to give energy to something that you don't necessarily know the outcome? Yes. Would it be hard to also quit and never find out? Yes.
Mhm. Yes, and that's one thing with our purpose that it does not let us do is quit. We may have to step back sometimes and take a break, and when we're going through sometimes and we're able, once we, pass that, we're able to help other people that are also going through. So sometimes we do need that break so we can deal with what we're dealing with and recharge and then give back out there and encourage others. I love that because with entrepreneurs and just speaking engagements, if say you're leaving the corporate world and you're now going out on your own, you may want it so bad, like everything in you wants to do this, but you do have that fear
Mm,
and you need someone on your side to help you with, give you that courage to go for it. So that's amazing what you're doing.
thank you. And it's for my clients that I continue. I think about, oh, if I quit, what am I saying to them? And so it's awesome. Even if you get one or two clients, they will help you keep the momentum because
Yes.
now you have people you're accountable to.
Yeah. And they feel you. They give you what you need when you need it, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we're at our lowest, that one email or that one phone call from that
Mhm.
client, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do this. I'll get back out there and I'm gonna get it done.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So we do need that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also when so like every Tuesday we meet a mastermind. So it's a weekly mastermind. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell them like I have to end this mastermind. And someone will say something about how this has impacted them. And I'm like, really? Oh, how am I supposed to say no to that? How am I supposed to say I quit on that?
Exactly.
And it's a reminder that no matter how small your idea, no matter whether you think you're the one or why should people listen to you, that imposter syndrome that settles into our bones, those lies that we believe. Even with all of that, when someone says, this has changed everything, I would not be where am had you not called me to invite me to this challenge. And that was an interesting, I was working with my coach one day, and this is a mindset piece.
Mhm.
He said, do you feel like a burden when you ask people for help? And I was like, ah, and I have to ask for a lot of help, right? Because I have no arms and legs. So I'm asking for help a lot. So I'm like, oh no, I can ask for help. But um sometimes, yes, I feel like a burden. And especially as women, like we got to hold it together. Even as men, like this whole idea of self-reliance. I think right now we're going through a pandemic of self-reliance, thinking it's only us that we can rely on. We can't depend on other people. We don't want to burden other people. And so I have to do it. It has to be done by me, for me, with me only. And that's such a dangerous place to be in. And when my coach asked me that, and I said, yeah, you know what? Sometimes I do feel like a burden. And he said, oh, so when you're asking people for to sign up with you as a client, do you feel like it's a financial burden rather than a gift? that you're giving them. Oh my gosh, this is the importance of having a coach, people, because you get to see your blind spots and you get to see how you think in your personal life and how it bleeds over into our business. And it's like, yes. And that shifted things for me because when I jump on a quote unquote sales call or like I think I invited you to Lise when we spoke for the first time. I'm like, for my guests, I open a 1 month free option for people to join the mastermind to see if it's something that could help them and they would like to join. And so when I make the ask, it's not like, oh, this is going to be a financial burden on them. It's a this is an opportunity for you to get to the next level, to level up. And oftentimes we can't level up by ourselves.
No, I think that's one of the biggest things with us entrepreneurs is we think we can do it alone. You cannot.
Mm-mm.
One, you need support. You need
Mm.
somebody in your corner that's going to help and support you because it will feel lonely, especially in the
Mm.
beginning when you're just starting out. It can be lonely, but we
Yeah.
don't have to do it on our own. And,
Yeah. Yes.
and I wanted to circle back, Les Brown.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. And for him to, come up to you and have that conversation, that was pretty nice, right?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is like I didn't know. It was the first time I've ever heard him speak. I didn't know anything about the personal development world, so it wasn't like I was fangirling or starry-eyed. I definitely was um, impacted by his speech, but when he came up to me, I'm like, oh, he's just another person. It's no
Mhm.
big deal. Uh, and that's the truth, right? Even our greatest mentors, the goats of our time, right? It's like they're just people and they started exactly where you were. And so, it's humbling in that perspective. But it's also humbling when they come after you and ask
Yeah.
to invite you to their event. So yes, it was a very special moment, and Les and I are friends, and we've shared stages several times, and yeah. But I think more than anything, by working with Les, he helped me see myself in a way I've never seen myself. Right? Like I didn't even have to go on stage to attract his attention. And so it's like there's that quote by Oprah, and she says, life will whisper, and if you don't listen, it'll scream. And I went back after he approached me and talked with me. I went back to my table where my team was, and I'm like, I think life just screamed at me. And they're like, what? And I'm like, Les Brown, okay? Like, I've had opportunities to speak, but Les Brown? Like, what?
How
Me?
amazing, right?
Yeah. And even if it isn't Les Brown, and this is the importance of being a good listener. I always tell my clients who are good speakers are good listeners. And it might not be a Les Brown in your life, but there are people giving you the same message over and over and over again. Maybe it's like you're the best baker ever, or maybe it's like every time have a hard problem with a relationship, I come to you. Like these are the little signs or crumbles that God gives us to lead to show us like, yes, I'm coming after you too. I'm like, you want this as bad and I want this just as badly as you want this. And so I think that's important to pay attention to.
Um, Pauline Victoria, so you were born with no arms and no legs, and you went through high school like this, grade school, high school, college. What were some of the challenges that you had to deal with and overcome those challenges? How did you overcome them to be this amazing entrepreneur and speaker and encourager that you are
Mm,
today?
thank you. Um, what just struck me is when you said encourage. It's encourage,
Mm.
right? It's when you're an encourager, you're infusing courage into people. And I think before anything, before any of the challenges that I experienced in school or college, it was the foundation that was set for me by my parents. They told me this story that when I was about 18 months old, I was fussing. And by this time, my parents learned my cries. And my mom was like, oh, she wants to sit up. And she went to go over to sit me up. And my father held her back and was like, let's just see what she can do. And they gave me space. As you can imagine, if a child doesn't get what they want, they throw a temper tantrum. They get angry, they start crying, they're frustrated, and they allowed me the space to do all of that. But eventually, they said, I rolled over to the wall and I used my head in the wall to inch my way up to sit myself up. And I don't know if they knew or didn't know, but what that did is it really created a space for me to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And so throughout my life, as you know, growing up as a regular child, um, it was just that. It was like, oh, you want to eat? Well, you figure it out. You want to color? You figure it out. So giving people that space to figure it out, to let them get angry, to let them get frustrated, that's really important to our growth. And so many of us, we just talked about it, right? There, that we don't want to step outside our comfort zone. I wanted to stay comfortable, which meant hidden and, not taking responsibility for my gift. But as I grew up, the probably the hardest time or obstacle I had to face was in junior high. And if anyone else remembers junior high, I think it's hard for most teenagers,
Yes,
right? Like,
absolutely.
oh my
Absolutely.
gosh, we just want to get out alive. And
Hmm.
for whatever reason, I mean, I got to choose which junior high I would go to, the one where all my friends from elementary were, or this other one. And I felt a strong pull to this other one where I knew nobody. I'm like, and I remember my mom asking me, she's tucking me in bed, and I was like 11. She's like, so what do you make a decision where you want to go to junior high? And I told her, I don't know why, but I think I'm supposed to go to this other junior high. And she said, okay. And so I chose the other junior high, which was whole like I had probably had the one of the lowest times in my life because I couldn't break through the cliques that were already created. And I felt like um I couldn't wear the right clothes that everyone else is wearing, the right shoes. Obviously, I didn't wear shoes. Do my hair the right way. Like I felt like all this pressure to be something that I wasn't. Um, and when you ask, how did I overcome it? Sometimes overcoming is just surviving it. It's nothing great. It's not pretty. It's not some like, oh, I slayed that dragon. It's just, I just need to white knuckle it and get through it. Um,
Through it, yes.
and I did. And by the time I was done with eighth grade, I had made some friends there. It was, and they were good. They were good, and I can imagine, I always thought, oh, they don't accept me or they don't do whatever. And I can imagine that they probably felt the same way, like that they were going through the same fears of not belonging or not being accepted. And here's what I've learned for when I went to college. When I went to college, I was placed in I told my parents, well, my parents made a deal with me. If you go into a college nearby the house, you can live in the dorm. I said, okay. So I got into Santa Clara University. And of course, I got to live in the dorm because that's what they said I could do. Because I told my mom, I feel like I'm supposed to go. It's nothing that wrong with the house. Everyone knows my needs. I'm well taken care of at home, but I need to know if I can live this life on my own. Like, could I live life by myself independently without relying on my family? And that's when they made the deal. Okay, yes, you can live on your own, but you have to live close by. So if something were to happen, they were a 20-minute drive away, not the flights away. And
Right.
so I ended up living in the dorm and was randomly placed with someone from Hawaii. And it was amazing. We totally hit it off. And because I'm half Filipino, there's a lot of cultural similarities between the people in Hawaii and myself. And so my friends ended up being people who were from Hawaii. And I remember going to the cafeteria one time with them for dinner. And one of them could see that I was uncomfortable eating in front of everybody, like being in a cafeteria with all these people. And she looked at me and she said, F them. And I'm like, what? And she's like, like, F them, who cares? And I'm like, oh. And it emboldened me in some way because it helped me accept myself. Now, relating that back to how I was in junior high, of like feeling like I was never accepted or felt like I belonged. What I've learned in hindsight is that whatever you believe out of yourself, that's what you get in life, right? So because I felt uncomfortable, because I didn't accept myself, because I didn't feel like I belonged, the world was reflecting that back. Of course, if I can't accept myself, why would anybody else accept me? Why would anyone else say I belong if I always felt like I'd never belonged? And so it really is a mindset piece of your identity. It's an identity piece, actually. And I have a framework that I use. People, again, another crazy story. I went through a networking event. It's like 7 days, 24/7 in Vegas. You're just you're just networking on steroids. It's called CEO space. And the person running the youth entrepreneurship program was the original editor for the Chicken Soup for the Soul books.
Wow.
And she also lived in Hawaii. And I'm like, the whole time, all week, I'm like, I need to meet her. I need to know her. I don't know why, but this is just intuitively, I need to know this person. The whole week, I never got to meet her. We ended up in the airport and we ended up on the same flight to Hawaii. And they call up people who need assistance first. So I got to meet her at least and be like, oh, it was nice to meet you. And, I really did want to get the chance to meet you and talk with you. But I got to go now. They're asking for me to board. And they're like, okay. She's like, okay. And so I went to go ask to, I said, I'm here to be boarded. And they asked me at the gate, okay, who's with you? I said, nobody. I flew here by myself. And then they said, you're too disabled to fly by yourself. And I'm like, is this a airline policy thing? Because I flew here by myself.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, no, it's an airline policy thing. I'm like, okay. And by this time I started panicking because my mom, who had met me there to help me during the week, had already left. And so um, I started panicking, and then they looked behind me and they said, are you with her? And I turned and there's the woman I wanted to meet. And she said, yes. And they're like, okay, great. We'll board you and make sure you're seated together. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what? And she said, I don't know, but something told me to come be with you. And so I did. And she didn't even know the conversation. And so for the whole flight back, so 6 hours back to Hawaii, I got to sit next to the person who was the original public editor for the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And she helped me define my framework. She's like, how did you do everything? How did you figure out this thing? And she helped me just go backwards, reverse engineer the process. And so we came up with the Vista formula that I now apply to everything. I had applied it to everything in the past. I just didn't know that's what I was doing. And so the Vista formula, really quick, V is for vision, I is for identity, S is for strategy, T is for Thanksgiving, and A is for actualizing. And so really The identity piece is so important and how we feel about ourselves. You know how they say you don't get what you want, you get who you are. And so that identity piece is huge to your entrepreneurial journey. And you will only go as far as as big as you believe yourself to be.
Wow. That is amazing. And can we just say how God has placed people in your life right when you need them?
Yes, I know. It's hard not to be a believer when you look back on your life and you see, oh, there it is. There he is.
Mm.
It's amazing.
It's
Absolutely.
amazing. And it's just so clear. Like he's just working miracles
He
all
is.
the time.
Yes, I
Yes.
believe.
Wow. I love that identity piece. And I think that's something that some of us entrepreneurs struggle with.
Yeah.
We struggle with that, especially when we're leaving a way that we've been doing things for years and then we go into entrepreneurship. It's different. It's corporate, I'll just say it. Corporate is different from entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I was gonna say, who you were and how you operated as a person within the corporate context or environment is very different from how you operate in your own business as the CEO.
Yes,
And
it really
so,
is.
yes.
Yeah, that identity piece plays a huge role, I'm sure, when you're talking and coaching.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, extremely important. So I know you encourage, you motivate, you inspire, but what do you do to also keep yourself motivated and keep yourself inspired to continue to do this every day? I know we touched on it a little bit, but what are some things that you do, daily or weekly to keep
Mm,
yourself going?
yeah. I think for me, first and foremost, is just centering myself around God, and having certain practices set in place that allow me to stay grounded in that. I was listening to something yesterday and it said anxiety is um is when you're like impatient. And humility requires patience.
Mm,
And I know as an entrepreneur, anxiety is a huge part of it. Whether we are uncertain about the outcome, are we really going to make it? Are we going to make six figures? Are we going to be able to live the life that other entrepreneurs show off with the houses and vacations and the cars and all of that stuff? Um, but, and we want to get there, but it requires patience. Um, and patience, it leads to humility because we understand that we're not doing this alone. And we need other people. We need the right people to show up. And I'm a big believer that once we make a decision, and I've seen this over and over throughout my life, whether it's personal or professional, is that once I've made a decision to do something, the opportunities start showing up, the people start showing up, just like I shared. It's and it's being a dance partner with God in that. And I think for me is that what keeps me inspired and motivated is this idea of like at the end of my life, do I want to be, like God says, you've won the race, my good and faithful servant. And so it's like this idea of like, was I able to squeeze everything out? Was I able to use the gifts and the talents that God gave me? He gave me this gift of living in this unique body, but he also gave me the voice to be able to share it and to share those unique experiences and the perspective shifts that I've had to make with my life. to hopefully help other people not have to suffer as much. Because there is a level of suffering, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs know that. That word passion. We're like, oh, what's your passion? And like, are you, if you do something that makes you happy and that you're passionate about, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, the word passion actually means suffering. So what are you willing to suffer for? This thing is not easy. It's so not easy to have to like continuously, you have a podcast, you're continuously looking for people to interview. Then you have to go through the interview, you have to vet them, then you have to do the show notes afterwards. And like there's a whole process behind these pretty faces on the camera. And so, but you're willing to suffer for it. You're willing to have, you have a passion for it. And for me, that passion is, it's like it's pulling me. And like I mentioned earlier, it will continue to chase you. And you often will regret what you do not do more than what you do do.
Wow, that was so beautifully said. And I agree 100%. 100%. And if you don't do it, once it chases you, if you don't let it catch you, there is also this feeling of you still want that. You still want it. You still want to go after it. So it's always going to be there. That
Hmm.
want to do, it'll always be there because maybe it was placed on your heart for a reason.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Inspire. Um, when I first started in the speaking industry, I never resonated with the word motivation. Because I felt like that's a very push. Like I'm gonna push you to take action. I'm gonna push you to believe. And I just felt kind of an ick around it. And then when I heard an interview with Dr. Wayne Dyer, and they talked about the word inspiration, he said the actual word inspire means in spirit. And I just think when you're inspired to do something, it's from something bigger and it pulls you. It doesn't push you. And here's the reality. You're going to be loved and accepted whether you go after it or not. God's not going to love you less because you didn't. But it's how we want to look at ourselves. Like what is that person in the mirror saying to ourselves? And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I talked about how the eyes are the windows to your soul. But how many times do we look into our own eyes? Like, do we get in front of a mirror and we look into our eyes? And like, what do we want to say back to ourselves at the end of our life?
That's beautiful. Beautiful. And you mentioned a couple of times entrepreneurship is not easy. It's hard. It's
Hmm.
hard. And it's not, we see on social media sometimes the after effect of, people who have made it and made the money and they have the fancy cars if that's what they choose. They have the huge homes. But to get to that point, it's hard. It's not
Hmm.
easy, but it feels good doing it and getting to that point. So I would just, advise don't give up. Don't
Yeah.
give up. Sometimes we have to change the things that we do, you know, and go in a different direction, but we still want to move towards our dreams because it just feels so good when you get to that point.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm. Pauline Victoria, tell me, what are some things that you do for fun and to reset and just some good self-care practices that you may have?
Well, I love the water, so living in Hawaii is great. Unfortunately, swimming in the ocean is a little bit more challenging for me. So, like I love swimming in a pool and just being in the water and outside and soaking in the sun. And again, that's just very grounding. Being in nature is extremely grounding. Um, I think it's important for our souls. When in entrepreneurship, we're oftentimes in our heads. It's like, okay, this is what I got to get done today. Let me look at my calendar. Let me block out my, tasks and do the blocking. And it's like, that's a big productivity skill. And you're always churning things out, but your soul needs to be fed, which think then feeds the mind. Um, and so, yeah, making sure I go to church at least once a week is really important. And then being in nature, it just is very, and taking time. Like I definitely try to not to, well, I definitely don't schedule any appointments for Saturdays and Sundays. And I know that sounds counterproductive to like not be doing anything at 7 days a week, but at the same time, it refreshes you. And I think that's really important during this entrepreneur thing because then if you keep going, you eventually burn out. And so taking that break on purpose, I think is really important.
Oh, I agree 100%. You need time, you need downtime. You need time to just chill, just relax, and even spend time with family, friends. So I'm
Mhm.
definitely with you on that Saturday and Sunday, you know.
Yeah, my husband, we do a Sunday fun day, and like all our friends know, don't reach out to us to go do anything. Like this is our time for us, and it's so great. We're just newly empty nesters, and I think that's important. So to reconnect, right? There's so many couples that get divorced after their kids go away, and it's just something that I appreciated. My husband initiated. So it is
Right.
important. Yeah.
It is. It's very important because we should think of that time once the kids are out of the house. Okay, now we reconnect. You know, now we can be hubby and wifey again, you know, and just have
Mhm.
fun.
Yeah.
Start fresh.
Yeah.
So that was a
Exactly.
good idea he had.
I know.
Yes,
Definitely pat on the back up for that one.
absolutely. So what are some things you have going on or coming up in the near future?
Well, I have my mastermind ongoing. So if anybody would like to do a free 1 month trial, I mean, I feel like a 1 month free trial would be helps you get a really good idea of whether or not you will like and will find the mastermind helpful. And there's a group of us already going every Tuesday. So if you are interested in that, I'll make sure I get you the link to least to include that in the show notes. It's a link so someone could sign up for the free trial if they'd like. It is a good group of people. And I'm definitely you come up with this one idea and it kind of like I said with even with the crypt chat, it took a life of its own. And it starts like an avalanche or a snowball rolling down the hill and starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But then I think as an entrepreneur, you always got to be looking at, okay, what else can I provide? What other things could I do? So I'm always reiterating things. The mastermind is set in place. I'm glad for that. But you always have to constantly be on the lookout of like, okay, this is what else I can do to help people. Maybe they don't want the full mastermind experience. Maybe they just want a little course. So I'm figuring all that out right now. And so if you just connect with me on oneleggupproductions.com, then you'll be on the list of what's coming up and new all the time, not just right now.
Awesome. Sounds good. And we will be sure I'll put that information in the description as well so people can have it and just click
Perfect.
and get joined up with that. It has been so nice and so refreshing having this conversation with you. I have appreciated you for being here so much, and I thank you so much. Are there any last tips or any advice you would want to give someone or any encouraging words you would want to say?
Um, just like if you need courage, reach out. Um, Oftentimes the people we look at people, especially my husband's like, people love the underdog story, right? Throughout my life, I've had people set those standard very low for me. And which my mom's like, actually, that's work that to your advantage because once it's set so low, all you're going to do is impress them and exceed their expectations. And
Yes.
and it's like, okay, yeah. But you also have to make sure that you're guarded around believing that standard as well. So I've always tried to set a very high standard for myself. And then understand that courage precedes everything. Like if I didn't have the courage, I would never have learned to swim on my own, drive, which took a lot of courage because that's so scary. At least when I was first began, remember when your 16-year-old self-started driving, it's scary. Get
Yes.
married, right? To allow myself to feel loved. Like I did resign to the fact, like, it's okay. I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to be that jewel on someone's arm that they want to show off, right? So when someone did show up, it's like, okay, I had the courage to be loved, and then the courage to feel like I could give life and give birth to my son. Like all of that required courage. But on the other side of that, like you said, were miracles. And so I would just encourage all of you who are listening or watching right now to find the courage somewhere, whether it be partnering up with somebody, finding a coach, joining my mastermind, helping, working with Talise in any way. And I promise you, once you do have the courage to take some action, that miracles, real miracles that you could never even imagined are waiting for you on the other side.
Wow, absolutely beautiful. You are amazing.
Thank
And I
you.
thank you again so much for being here. And I hope everyone enjoy this episode. And stay tuned. We'll be back next week. So have a great day. And thank you so much, Pauline Victoria. And we are out. Take care, everyone.